Hi friends, welcome to the second bit of this presentation. So once again, dealing with controlling performance. So we'll now be looking at the elements of performance appraisal or the concept of employee performance appraisal. It's very important in any organization to undertake a performance appraisal. It's a control mechanism. It's a control tool, control system in most organizations. What I do personally is that I set targets for myself every week. At the end of the week, I check whether I've met my targets. It helps a lot to always be taking stock of your life. I have a journal, a very big, a good journal here. In this journal, it's like a mantle. I write all my key items that come into mind: annual planning, mid-year reviews. I take notes, and I use it to judge myself whether I'm on track or not. So it's important that every individual, at any point in time, you should take stock of your life. Sit back, take some reflection, and ask yourself whether all is well or all is not well. What are the areas you can improve? Okay. And I always say that every human being at any point in time needs improvement. We are all not perfect. That's why you can see that the organization now behaves like a rational human being. And they try to put in place this control system in most organizations to ensure that the employees are working in line with the mandate, with the strategy of the organization. Don't deviate. If you are deviating, they bring you back and they tell you how to move ahead on such trends. Okay. So once again, I'm gonna share my screen and then we'll move through this quickly. Again, it is just a summary of the text. I'll be happy if you take the text and then read it on your own. Okay. All right. So this is a summary. Let's go. All right. So we're looking at the first part, which deals with the performance management. Okay. So employee performance appraisal deals with two basic concepts. Okay. Performance management. Okay. And then the appraisal itself. So you're managing the person's work, how he goes about things throughout the whole year. And at the end of the day, you sit down systematically to review what he's done. Okay, did it conform with the guidelines that you give to the person? So performance management deals with specifically getting the results, better results, okay, by better understanding, managing performance within an agreed framework. So in which case you would have set the goals, the standards, the competency requirements. You've given the person the logistics, the tools that he needs to work, okay. And then in this case, you tend to establish a shared understanding about what is expected of you, how do you achieve it, and how will you be judged based on it. So you give the person the guidelines, and so he knows what he's working at. Okay. Now the appraisal system, like I said, is more of a systematic review, evaluation process, where we want to assess your performance over the past period and look out for areas where you need improvement. We fix it. Areas where you've done well, we tap you on the shoulder. Good job done. Okay. If you look at SEMA's test, the SEMA as a body, they actually scarily puts it that they use the word controlling the individual. Okay. And it quoted SEMA's test quotes directly from Armstrong's HR book. Okay. Armstrong's Handbook of Personnel Development Practice 2003. And here they say that appraisal is a part of the management process, the performance management process. Okay. So SEMA outlines 5-stage performance management plan based on this rule. It's similar to the performance appraisal process. We'll look at it very soon. Okay. So one, SEMA talks of from the business plan, you should identify the needs, the requirements, the competencies, okay, needed to undertake the task. Number two, draw up a performance agreement plan. Set out objectives so that I know what is expected of me. Okay. Number three, you draw up an improvement and development plan. So including training needs, development needs, so that the person can be trained on areas that he needs to better understand how to do his work. Okay. Then you manage performance throughout the year. That's number four. Then finally, you review the performance against set targets at any certain point in time. Normally, they do it and mid-year. Most organizations will do it twice a year. They have a mid-year and then the final one. Okay, so those are the two parts of the entire process in terms of evaluating performance. Okay, Now, let's move on. Now, the second thing is that appraisal has its aims, has its objectives. Okay. Before we move into this section, we should also ask ourselves: are there any benefits? Are there any importance? Any good things you can talk of in terms of performance appraisal? Yes, there are, to both the individual, and then to the organization. From the individual perspectives, when I get a feedback about my work and there's an assessment of my competency, it tells me that it tells me where I am. Okay, it helps me to understand whether I've done well. The feedback will help me, and it helps me to also tend to establish myself or to compare myself against established targets, okay, and standards. Number two, it can also help the individual to identify areas where I think he's done well and areas where he needs to do better. Okay. Number three, it provides a basis for remuneration. It always provides a basis for the remuneration. It may also be used as an opportunity to discuss future prospects and training needs, identify ambitions and training needs, and then development needs. To the organization itself, it also helps them to assess competency of individuals and look out for areas where they can improve. At the end of the day, you improve the individual's competency, you are actually improving your organization in terms of workforce quality. Okay. It also helps in providing a fair process for reward decisions. So I'm promoting you, I'm giving you 10% plus your salary because based on A, B, and C, you achieved A, B, and C. Okay. It also helps the organization to formulate and set up their training plan for the organization so that they will not waste resources training everyone en masse. Okay. It also helps in improving communication between managers and their subordinates, provides clear-cut targets which are linked to corporate organizations' objectives. It also helps for HR planning, succession planning. It helps, okay. And again, it monitors recruitment and induction process against the results, okay. Now, the appraisal process overall has its general aims and specific objectives. The general purpose is looking at the reward review, allocation of bonus payments, like we just said, from the benefits or the advantages of undertaking this. And it also helps in performance review, identifying the training needs, both of the individual and of the company, from what I just explained in terms of the benefits, okay. And also it helps in charting a career path. So as an individual, it helps me to know my future prospects and ambitions, okay. And so the benefits of appraisal system to the individual, to the organization, tends to form some part of this general purpose or overall aim of the appraisal system. Specific, okay, objectives could cover these ones, okay, and again, they come out from the same benefits and benefits to the individual, to the organization. You find it on page 222, okay, of the text. So split between generic and then specific objectives. So for the specific ones, we're looking at certain specific work objectives, okay, establishing performance metrics or performance standards, benchmarks against which you are expected to perform. And it helps us to also compare your performance against the targets, okay, comparison of performance. And again, it helps to identify which individuals need to be promoted, which ones need to be improved, okay, which ones should we get rid of because they are not adding any value to the organization? Which ones should we renew their contracts when due, and which ones shouldn't we? Okay, and again, it helps to also it also helps to identify areas where we could monitor selection of individuals for training. Okay, monitoring initial selection procedures during the hiring and the recruitment process. Okay, and then also improves communication, like I said, between the subordinates and then the managers. And it also provides an inventory of actual and performance and potential performance. So it gives you an inventory, a pool where you can always leverage on in terms of your work outputs, okay, or employee performance. Now, in terms of the entire process, like I said, SEMA has five, but others could also use that same five to expand it. We could generally have these four, let me say five or four, but it depends on the organization. And they all come to the same tune, they all sing the same song, come to the same notion. So, overall, in the first place, we need to establish or identify the corporate plan. which translates into the purpose of the appraisal. Okay, what are the job requirements? What are the job analysis? Okay, so that's the first element we look out for. So the identification of criteria for assessment. And normally you'll find this being linked to the job description or to the specific needs of the job. Okay. So identify the criteria for assessment based on the job description, the role that I need to play. Okay. Then the second part, we prepare an assessment report by the manager. Okay, so that's where employees' performance come in. We prepare this report. Okay, so an appraisal report, it may be based on self-review, and usually, the supervisor will ask you to prepare a draft, and then you send it to her or him, your supervisor. Then he will also fine tune it. Then you all agree, and then you sign off. Okay, so that's the assessment report by the manager. Normally, it is initiated by the manager. He will ask you, or she will ask you to prepare your portions. Okay, and then you send it to them. Okay, you send it to the manager. Then we have the assessment interview. You've done your work throughout the year or mid-year. Then they call you for an interview, a meeting, one-on-one. Normally, it is a face-to-face session. Okay, then after that, we look at they then have a jointly agreed concrete conclusion. So I did X. Supervisor said you should have done Y. You agree, I should have done this. You should have done that. You all come. You did well here. A tap on your shoulder. You should have improved here. Then we all agree in writing and we sign off. Okay. Then we go on for the follow-up action. If there are things I need to work on as an employee, as a subordinate, I need to work on it. And normally, you see these ones carried forward into the subsequent years' performance appraisal system or document which is supposed to be signed. So again, usually, once we get to the jointly agreed concrete conclusions, we need to, the supervisor and then the employee or the subordinate, need to prepare and implement an action plan based on the agreed conclusions. Don't leave it hanging. If there's a need for you to train him or her to be able to undertake these tasks better, to perform his or her work better, you put those in place. Okay. So the training is very important. How do I go about achieving the follow-up actions that I've been asked to do? What is expected of me next year? Okay. Then the follow-up actions, like I said, will now feed back into the report that our manager will prepare. And that will also form the basis of it becomes like a rolling budget, the basis on which they prepare the next year's appraisal system. Okay. Now, one thing we want to mention over here that these objectives must be smart. We always might have heard of the word smart. Okay. Now, the S, like we always know, stands for something specific. Not just specific, it should be stretching. Okay. Don't make it quite shallow such that it doesn't challenge the individual. So it should be specific, yes, precise, concise, okay? But it should stretch the person. It should help the person. It should challenge the person, okay? Stretching, and it should be significant. So all objectives you set in the appraisal process should be significant and not immaterial. So that is the S, specific, significant, stretching enough to induce thinking, okay? Number two, thinking and creativity. Number two, the M. The M stands for something we can measure, measurable, quantifiable, okay? But again, the M also means that it should be meaningful and motivational. So any objective you set with your subordinate should be meaningful, not just quantifiable. It should be meaningful. If you tell me to quantify carbon emission and you know it is not meaningful, why should I do that? Yes. Okay, so you should just try to ensure that it is measurable, it is meaningful, and it will motivate a person. Self-motivated, okay? Self-motivated, very important, okay? Then we look out for the A. The A we've all known it to be what? Achievable. Can I achieve it? Is it realistic? Okay, let me not bring the word realistic. Can I achieve it? Is it doable? Okay, but again, the A should also stand for something we've agreed upon. A, agreed upon. So I don't just sit down and draft my own objectives. I agree with my supervisor. Okay. The same A also stands for acceptable within the organization. It should be acceptable between myself and my supervisor and acceptable within the organization. And again, it should be action oriented, something we can physically implement and execute per the organization strategy. Okay, so A should be achievable, yes, attainable, which almost sounds the same as achievable, acceptable within the organization, action oriented, and agreed upon. Then we have the R, it should be realistic. That's what we know, right? Not only should it be realistic, it should be relevant, it should be reasonable and results oriented. So it should sync with common reasoning, with common sense, so that you know that what you are doing meets common sense applications. Okay. Then the T, like we've always known, we say it is time bound or time based. Okay. Not only should it be time based or time bound, it should be tangible, something we can also track, and it should be timely. Okay. Well, sometimes our works could be intangible, but we should be able to track it. It should be reasonable. It should be something we can feel. Okay. So these are the elements we want to take in terms of the actions, in terms of the objectives that you set. Okay. Now, the next aspect is to look at the entire appraisal system. Okay. The next thing is the entire appraisal system. Let me take you one more step back. In terms of the appraisal system, there are different approaches which could be used. Okay. Different approaches. We have the ranking system. We appraise you and we rank you in terms of the top five, the top two. Okay. Sometimes you have a scale of 1 to 5, satisfactory, excellent, very good. So we have the ranking system. Some organizations will implement the ranking system. It's more structured. It's a formal approach. It consists of ranking these individuals per the workflow, that the achievements, the results that they've achieved, and we normally will use numbers to rank them. Okay, to grade them. It's like a grading system. And then we have the unstructured format. Okay, besides the ranking system, we have the unstructured format, also very common, where we use an essay, short answers, okay, to grade employees, not numbers, not quantifiable stuff, okay. Yes, of course, sometimes it could be quantitative, but it will be something more of a narrative, qualitative applied as well, okay. Now, it helps to capture all aspects of the employee's performance, not just the numbers, not just the quantitative metrics, but the qualitative elements are also important. Okay, so that it will be all encompassing, holistic, comprehensive. Then we have the self rating. The self rating, the employer is given the chance to rate himself against certain agreed criteria. And here it is expected that the employee will be honest with himself and grade himself. Okay, of course, the manager will review to be sure that your grading is not biased. Okay. Now, the advantage of this is that the individual gets the opportunity to consider their own performances, and in some cases, it reminds management of what they have achieved in the period. Okay. But the disadvantage is that if you're not careful, people will cook up the stories and write some things which are not real. Okay. Then we have the 360 approach, and I have used that 360 approach in the USAID. So I will work with technical teams. Now, it will not be only between myself and my supervisor doing the rating or the ranking or the review. But the other guys whom I've worked with from the contract office, from the technical teams, from the support offices, they will also write some comments about me and send it to my supervisor secretly. I don't say it. Okay, so you identify 3, 4, 5 people. It's like providing reference check on you. So that's the 360. So they will all have to say something about you and they send it to your supervisor and later they discuss. You discuss. Okay, every member of staff will be given this confidential system, quite anonymous. Sometimes your supervisor will even ask them, call a couple of them and ask them, how do you think, what do you think about this guy? Okay, so that's a 360 approach. Okay, that's a 360. So those are the approaches to performance appraisal, the ranking, okay, the 360 approach, the unstructured format, and the self-rating. Now, what are the benefits? I think I've mentioned this overall in terms of benefits to the employer, benefits for the to the employee. Okay, so common candidates for promotion. Okay, communication links corporate objectives to individual targets, basis for future HR planning, monitoring of effectiveness and induction needs, training plans. Okay, now, the shared corporate benefits for the individual areas you think as an individual I can improve, basis for rewarding me, basis for punishing me, okay, systematic approach to assess my competency and areas where I think I can build up. Okay. Now, again, at the start of each year, it is always important at the start of each year that you set these performance targets. At the end of the day, what does it do? It keeps me on my toes. I know where I'm supposed to start, kick off, when I will be asked to apply the brakes, and then they check whether I'm doing well. And when at the end of the day, they will tell me, good job, or you need improvements. Okay. So normally at the start of the year, opportunity is given to the employee to understand what is required of him. It's always done. Okay. And then we put this as a form of objectives for the year, your targets. If there are any training needs, give it to him, develop him. So every organization will have CPDs or some budget for CPD, so that you will not just be idle and dormant, but you could be trained and developed to catch up with the changing trends in the world. Okay. Now at the end of the year, we sit back. Sometimes even in the middle of the year, we sit back with or sit together with the employee. That will talk about how did you perform. These were your targets. Okay, we compare your performance, your competency against set standards and targets, and see where you've deviated, where you've done well, and where you need to be rewarded, where you need to be further um, educated or trained or developed. Okay, and this helps normally in setting the tone for further salary increases. KPMG does that. I've worked, and most of the audit firms will do that. They will use this as basis for promoting you to become a senior associate, senior manager, deputy director, and so on and so forth. Okay. We're wrapping up. Limitations of appraisal. It has some limitations, has some weaknesses. Okay, as any formal organization, activity, it will surely have some weaknesses. Okay. The organizational culture may mean that appraisal is not taken seriously. If it is just for formality's sake, nobody will take it serious. Okay. So is it just on paper, or is it something which is normally um, taken serious? Would that be the basis upon which I could be reprimanded or rewarded? Okay. So the manager might also exhibit conscious or unconscious bias. I like this guy. So when it's time for appraisal, even before I sit with him, I've graded him to be excellent. So some bias could come in here. It happens everywhere. But it is expected that you could tone down on your bias at least and be more objective. Okay. Again, there could be defensiveness on the part of the employee. Once, especially, these are tied to promotions or bonuses or salary increases. He wouldn't sit back and watch you to rank him low, because he knows it will affect his overall income or his bonuses or his promotion. So they tend to become defensive, and they speak out and say, "No, this shouldn't happen. You should have given me training and development on that. You didn't coach me. I did it for my own ingenuity." So they tend to become defensive, the employees. Okay, and again, there could be defensiveness on the part of the manager, especially where they try to reconcile their role as judges, as critics. They will always need to maintain some kind of relationships with the staff. Okay, sometimes it becomes more of a banter, give and take, and it's not quite healthy. Okay. And again, time pressure could also be one item which, sometimes you are bound to do this within 1 week. You are not getting references as if, for example, if it's a 360, people are not responding. So you are just tempted to write something and leave it and just move on with life. So in writing something about the employee, you may end up writing something he wouldn't like, and that could be a basis upon which he could become defensive, try to defend himself. Okay. Before we move on, we remember the management by objective, the MBO by Drucker, right? Peter Drucker's main contributions to the management theory. You remember? Now, he made mention of something quite important, which has to do with the appraisal system. And he says we should consider how well it works in practice. Sometimes just on paper, okay? um, we should compare the performance. He was just taking an example of treasury, okay, and sales, and where he looked at treasury and honesty in the process. Okay, he said, how do you compare performance away from sales and production processes? Now, does the use of a bell curve make this a bit of a fast. Okay, maybe you will have to look out for what a bell curve is. Okay, so read on that, what a bell curve is. Okay, so Draka was saying that we should try to make up for inadequacies at the beginning of the year. Okay, where not all of the objectives could be equally stretching. Sometimes some of the objectives you can achieve it in a day. Some it will take you 3 months, 6 months to achieve it. Okay, so he was talking of the need for us to what balance this. Okay, don't make all stretching. Leave some out to be quite flexible. It motivates me. Okay, and again, he was also talking of the fact that this requires a lot from people. Let people understand that we require a lot from you. The aim is that we just don't want to we just don't want you to improve yourself, but we want collectively to improve the organization. So a lot will be required of you. Okay, it should be moderate. There should be some it should be moderate. Okay, not all too hard, not too weak, but a balance, a blend of all. Okay. Again, Peter Drucker mentioned that there should be moderation committees, more or less like supervisory committees who moderate the whole system to ensure some fairness within the process. Okay. All right. So I'll end with Drucker's statement before we enter the elements of coaching. Okay. So he proposed that personal and departmental objectives need aligning with overall business objectives. So we shouldn't just run our department's individual objectives independent of the overall corporate strategy. It should sync. Okay, it should tie in. We should align them. So he suggested 8 key objectives which could help in this appraisal system. Okay, he talks of profitability and limited it to earnings per share. We could use other profitability measures. In fact, if you look at it critically, you see that profitability shouldn't even match up with EPS. You are looking at more investor ratios. Okay, but let's leave it that way. Okay, EPS. Then he also talked of innovation, whether the board wants to lead with new product or follow with the existing one. Okay, market standing. What's the overall market positioning? What are the marketing policies? What products do they sell? Where do they sell it? How do they sell it? What marketing tools would they use? Then looked at productivity targets will have to be set in terms of output in relation to manpower or labor hours. Okay. Then he also mentioned physical and financial resources, where we're talking of both long term and short term working capital. Okay, solvency requirements. Then he also mentioned managerial performance and development, quite important, highlighted deep font. So let's look out for clear-cut policies and objectives such as training system, development of the staff, reward systems, where there is the need to reprimand, to discipline, to demote. Let's do that. At the end of the day, it keeps people on their toes, okay? Then also worker attitude and performance at the workplace. Again, policies are needed, okay, to develop workers, um, worker management relationships, okay? And then finally, he mentioned of the public responsibility. So corporate social responsibility comes in here. So as an individual, I'm not just working with the aim of meeting the overall profitability, but whatever I do ethically should help support the business corporate image. Okay. And at the end of the day, it comes back to you as an individual, especially when you find yourself working in an organization which is tagged as highly socially responsible. There is one more item there I want you to look at. When you look at page 228 to 229, there is another tool, which is the Kaplan and Norton's balance scorecard. Okay, I'll leave that one for you to read. It's also another tool which we could also use or adopt in the appraisal system. Okay, finally, coaching and mentoring. We all need to be coached. Okay, because at the end of the day, somebody have been there before. Someone has done what you've done before. So the person knows the mistakes, the errors that you are bound to commit. Okay, so it's always important to have a coach, a workplace coach, a workplace mentor. Back then, when I was working with USAID, I had a workplace mentor and I had my line manager as well. So I'll set the target with my supervisor, which is agreed written. Then I have this workplace mentor, which I sit with him and also set additional um, workplace objectives. Those ones do not normally count towards my promotion or my reward, but it helps me a lot to stay on track. And sometimes he will call me. I remember him, Kalonji. Samuel Kalonji will call me and tell me, have you achieved it? Well, how did you do it? And it was something unofficial, but I try to do it. It helps a lot. So coaching helps you to target high performance, improvement at the workplace. It helps you to develop your specific goals and align your goals and skills towards the overall corporate objectives. Okay, it's a form of additional appraisal system, very important, coaching and mentoring. Okay, but mentoring, on the other hand, is a longer term relationship. Okay, focus on learning development and focused on support for career development. Okay, now it concentrates more on career-oriented advice. How do I get on with it? How would I do it? Okay. How can I be a role model in future for someone to also follow suit? Now, both roles, we are being told, helps in changing you for the better. They are all change agents. Okay. The understanding here is that they will help you to win as an individual, and it helps the organization to also win at the end of the day. It brings in empathy, credibility, it brings in some form of human face to the overall process um, of organizational development for the staff, for the company as well. Okay. So that is what I will end here with. Okay. Very important. We can pick this up and then we read more on coaching and then mentoring. All right. I think I've gone past my time against what I decided, but that's it. I'll leave it here. And then at the end of the day, I hope we all benefit. It's just a summary. It's just a summary of what the text is. Read more of the text. You have expanded versions of the text, and it gives you better understanding of this particular concept. All right, friends, see you and take care for now. Bye.